Hey guys, it's Holly from Mima Had One. Just giving everybody a few minutes to jump on while we get everything adjusted. Thanks, guys. Hey guys, just giving everyone a couple minutes to get logged on. So stay tuned for the comic book education. Hey Ma, how are you? Hey guys, we're giving everybody just a couple of minutes to join in. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We'll get started right at 6:30. Hey Debbie, just giving everybody a couple minutes to get logged on. We'll start right at 6:30. Hey Esmira, welcome. You have to, don't you? Hey Jamie. Give us just a minute and we'll get kicked off. Hey Joel. We'll get started in just about a minute, right at 6:30. All right, guys, it is 6:30. We're going to get started here. Welcome, Mima family. If you can't tell, we are not in the store tonight. So welcome to our living room, along with all of the festivities that go with it. Sean is going to be our guest tonight, and he wanted to introduce you to Mr. Kitty, who is not happy about being held, but you may see him come across the camera a couple of times tonight, curious what's going on. So again, tonight is going to be a comic book education. We're going to talk about what the markets are. We're going to talk about what to look for as you're collecting and looking at comic books, where we're looking, what you're looking for as far as condition, grading, all of that kind of stuff. We are open to questions. So go ahead and you can certainly send your questions via chat and we'll be happy to answer those. So for those who don't know, if you're not a typical follower of our store, this is Sean Joyner. He is the peepaw of the Meemaw Had One family, and he is huge on comic books. He's been collecting all of his life. He has a lot of knowledge surrounding that, and I'm going to let him take it from here, and I'll scoot over and start monitoring the comments. Thanks, guys.
Hey guys, this is Sean, and you saw Mr. Kitty. He's about 4 years old. We found him. Fell out from underneath a car in front of Walmart about this time 4 years ago, and I managed to be able to get him and bring him home. And so he's been with us ever since. All right, so tonight, what we're talking about is going to be comic books, and just giving you some insight into the comic book collecting area, the comic book industry. There's a lot that's involved, and so we're just going to go over some of the basic stuff. I'll give you a lot of examples and stuff like that, what we have here. So I started out collecting when I was probably about 12 years old, and the way that happened is my dad, he used to go out to lunch with some friends, and so the same shopping center, there was a comic book store. Home Folks was one, and then Augusta Book Exchange, which is the other. And ABX, which it is known now, is still there. Well, it's moved now. It's on Bel Air Road, and so Paul Rogers is the owner of that. And so we have a box there is what it's called, and I've had that since I was 12, and that same one, and it's been there for over 40 years that I've been collecting and working with that. So I'll tell people, collect what you like. If you are someone who is interested in the investing area and part of it, we'll talk about that some too. So just some of the stuff that you might see if you go to a store, and you might hear some terminology like bag and boarded. So this is more like what that means and what that looks like. You got the bag and you got a board, and so we want to secure it. We want to keep that spine real tight, and we'll explain some of that stuff too. But basically what you'll see is something like this. These are the bags. There are bags that are from areas that we will call gold, silver, bronze, copper, modern. So when we say modern bags, those are going to cover our books that are bronze, copper, modern age. There are other sizes for the golden, for the silver age. They are big because these are a little bit bigger books, and I'll show you examples of those too. And when it comes to grading companies, and we'll talk a little bit about that. So typically, we get whether it's I get people that come into the store that want to sell books, and we do buy comic book collections. I have my personal collection also, and a lot of times, whether you go to yard sales, auctions, different places, people think that, oh, this comic book is a 10-cent comic book and it's worth a lot of money. Well, Most cases, that's not going to be the scenario. So, one of the things that you want to look at is don't make that mistake of, oh, this is a 10-cent Bugs Bunny comic, or even it could be a 10 or 15-cent Superman comic. Does not mean it's worth a lot of money. So if you were just to walk into a comic book store and you go to a back bin that has dollar books in it, you may see it in a bag like that with no backboard. It may be on its own, just sitting there. This is a Conan book, and it's a what if Conan. This is not a expensive book or anything like that. This is a book that you probably be able to find in dollar bins. And on top of that, you have spine creases and everything like that. So we'll talk about that too. So, just because you see that and people are familiar with Conan and think, oh, that's a book that's might be worth some money. Not really. So, not everything you see is what it can be. So, when we look at part of the process is, we want to try to grade that book. Now, I'm not a professional grader. I do, comic shows as a vendor, as well as, just, a patron, going out there and buying. So, you need to look at, or try to learn or have somebody teach you, how to at least do some type of, be able to, figure out, a grade area. So, grading scale runs 0.05 on up to 10. So 10 being, your best grade. Now, most of what we're going to see is a near mint book is going to be a 9.8. A 9.8 just means that, this book has, no flaws, anything like that. And that it's in, the best shape that it can be, not to be a 9.9 or a 10. So, it's almost, you almost never will see a 9.9 or a 10. And, we have 3 major grading companies that work with grading comic books. One is CGC, one is CBCS, and one is PGX. Now, a lot of people don't like PGX because, they are considered a lower standard of grading in the industry. And that's been just, basically their fault. And so if you see graded books, it doesn't mean that a graded book is worth a lot of money, even at a 9.8. The 9.9, 9.10 is even, you just the layperson wouldn't be able to tell, what that difference, would be. In those books, it would have to be somebody who works for one of these grading companies. And even then, they're like a judge. They don't have a good day, you may not get a good grade. So there's been known where, maybe one has been cracked, or, say one of these has been opened, and I say that, and I'll just show you a picture. An example here is Wolverine, and that's Wolverine 10, and he runs, and he came out as a 9.6. So these are encapsulated, not only for their protection and preservation, and so, I've gotten to the, point where I can, kind of grade a little bit by, just, looking at something and kind of knowing, where that's going to be and able to, get a price point. But one of the other things is, when you talk about, the grades, you could have something that's a 9.8, that's a modern book, or even not a modern book, and it's not worth anything more than case costs. Now, what case cost means is that this is how much it costs to encapsulate that book and have it graded. Now, that can be, anything. Let's say anything. That can be a book that, it could be visually, beautiful artwork and everything like that. But it does not mean, that's worth that. So, the cost depending, could be, 35, 40, 50 bucks, by the time you, either hand off or ship a book out and have it shipped back to you. And it depends, on the time frame there. Just how much they have to, worry about, and how much they have to, books they have to grade, that's sitting in the vault, just waiting. All right, so one of the things, if you look at a market, you may see that books have right around COVID and after COVID were just skyrocketing in value. Now, like for instance, I have a friend who is up in Columbia, South Carolina. We're in Augusta, Georgia, who has been and only been a comic book vendor. Well, he's had a store too, but so all he does now is in the past probably decade or more is just do shows all over the southeast, well, the eastern seaboard too. But he's got millions and millions of dollars in inventory and high-end books. So he's been doing this a long time. It's not, but again, it's not just something you walk into and you can make a living off of it. But he does that. So going back to around COVID, what they call the comic boom, and basically everybody's getting checks from the government and everything, and they got free money to spend, so they're going on these auction sites, and then the prices of stuff they couldn't afford before is just starting to go up and up and up, and like ridiculous amounts. A lot of people invested during that time period, and a lot of people lost and have lost their butt on that. Same thing kind of like in the 90s, 90s, early 2000s, later 80s. These books were just massively produced, millions of a particular copy, like X-Men 1, which I'm not talking about X-Men 1 from the 60s, from the Silver Age, but X-Men 1 that was from the early 90s. So, when you got millions of them floating around out there, these books are, no more than dollar books. So, that's during that COVID period is, what we call the comic boom. Everything's gone up. Now people have lost their butt, just like they did in the 90s, buying all the books. They thought one day we'd put the kids through college, and boom, that market just bottomed out. So you really got to know kind of what you're looking for. Now, you'll see things like TV shows, for instance, like The Walking Dead. When The Walking Dead first appeared, it appeared in comics. So, Walking Dead #1 at a good grade, 9.8. You're looking at over $1,000. And for me, that's one of the grails, the books that I'd really want. And one day I may come across that. Hopefully in the wild. That's where I really like to find my stuff, and I found a lot of good stuff in the wild. And some of that, and I put back on the market, and some of that.
Would you consider in the wild? Can you define that for people that may not know what that means? Okay, so when we say in the wild, it's just you're going out to, yard sales, flea market, antique stores, different places like this, and this is where you would find it in the wild. And it might even be a comic store that they realized this particular copy was in their back issue bin, and it's $1 or $5 bin or something like that, and then you walk out with it. So finding something out there where the wild where you paid little money for it. But like I was talking to The Walking Dead, for instance, and early issues of The Walking Dead worth quite a bit, because you got first appearances in there, such as Michonne. You got Rig, you got Carl, and you got those. Now, and those were a smaller print run because the show hadn't hit TV yet. And then when it did, of course, it became popular. The books skyrocketed. So based on TV shows, movies that are going to be coming out, like Deadpool versus Wolverine coming up. For instance, this book here, the one I showed you, is this fight between Wolverine and Sabretooth. And in the trailer, you can see
where Deadpool was holding up the head of Sabretooth. And so, like, the first appearance, Sabretooth is really been hot, and this is not that. This one that is very expensive right now. And a lot of times people go to the next best thing. Well, this is, I believe this is listed as, it's a Sabretooth appearance, but I think this is the first fight between them. I'd have to look. But this book right here is really hot right now. Now, this is a 9.6, and this is graded by CBCS. Now, is it? No, CGC on this one. So, people argue between if CGC or CBCS is the best. To me, they're about the same. I don't really see a difference in either one. Some people like, the way they present, with the labels and things, where one compared to the other. But when you look at something like this, a 9.6. So let's just say, this was a 9.8. 9.8, let's say, now I haven't looked at the market right, just this week, but let's just say a 9.8 was $100. Well, when you get something lower than that, then that price is going to drop. Sometimes it's going to drop really drastically. So this 9.6 can make this book $40, which is case cost. Or maybe a little bit more than we'd hit case cost, maybe $50 or something. So, that's an example. I'd love to find a 9.8 in that, but I'm going to pay the price if I do. So what I want to do is, if I'm looking, whether I'm looking to invest or whether I'm looking at, my personal collection, I want to stay away from this book right now. And after the movie's over and done, later on down the road, I'll watch the market, and then we can, go back and pick it up for a lot less. Now, that does not mean it's going to be a lot less. It all depends on the character of the market, what else is coming up. There's many different type of factors in there. So,
can you talk about the census and how that helps?
Yeah, so when you, with CGC, they have a census, so you're able to see these books if you're a member. Able to see these books and how many, are out there, and, how many 9.8s are out there, how many 9.6s have been graded, 9.4s, 1.0s, whatever it may be. So, your census, you can look at that, and, it varies again. They may add 25 graded books in a week. That may cause the market to drop because now there's more books out there, but if it's in demand enough, it may hold steady or it may go up. So CBCS is, similar in a lot of ways, PGX, and I don't think so. I haven't seen a census for them, but I usually don't pay attention a whole lot to their website, or their books. Now, when we get, go back to The Walking Dead, for instance, look at this book here, and this one, let's go to this book instead first. This book here. So this Walking Dead 132. The significance of this book is that it is not the first appearance of Alpha, but it is, which is a villain in the show. So this, her first appearance, is where she was created, where she came from. And so, this book, for instance, is, do we call it her first appearance, or do we call it, just a cameo? So, some that have a cameo are considered first appearances. Some are not. It just depends. A lot of times, the market makes that decision, and that's usually how it'll continue to be. So, this right here, even though it's her first appearance and everything in this book, this book is not an expensive book. There were a lot more of these that were produced than, let's say, Walking Dead 1 or Walking Dead 2 or 3 or 4, and the character, that those books, a few years ago went up. This one did because of that. Now, they're pretty much in the $10 range, something like that. All right, so we go to that, Walking Dead 138, and this would be what they would call the first full appearance of Alpha. So, this book here, it may, run in the same range. Just depends on the market again. But one of the things I want to show you here, and I'm going to pull it up closer if I can find it. One of the things that devalues a book are spine ticks. Okay, and these are little creases that are in the spine of the book. And so that'll decrease. It might go from a 9.8 to a 9.6 or a 9.4. If you have a color break, which I'm going to show you that, which means that that crease breaks color and you're able to see that, that's really going to affect the grade. Everything affects a grade, water damage, writing on the book. More or less, if you have if I went to a comic store and I saw this sitting on the shelf and I pick it up and I go, I really, I want that book. It's a number I need in my collection, for the Walking Dead run. And I look down and if I see this, for me, it's a deal breaker. Now, if I just want to read it and that's the end of it, then, maybe I would pay that, that little bit that I need for it. But, when I look at that, in a little column here. So, right in here, you can see there are 2 spine ticks, and you can see there, right there my finger is, and right there, that those 2 break color. And so that causes that issue. Now, a lot of times, when we look at that, that's an area that's black, and so that's, a little more visible. All right, so the one after that is Walking Dead 154. Now this right here is the first appearance of Beta, which is, Alpha Beta. And so he's like second in charge of the Whisperers. And this is his first appearance. And this book's about a $10 book. Now that would be without any spine ticks or anything like that. And as I look at this, I've got one good one there. And I can show you that. You see that right there with my fingers right beside it. Right here, was sitting right on top of it. That crease right there, that $10 book, it went just, down to, $2, $3. It's just that spine tick can really cause an issue. Now, back in the 90s, one of the things I was talking about was, the overproduced comic books. Just plain and simple. There were more comics, I'm going to say, being put out than there were readers. But the reason of that is because you'd have one guy who'd buy 100 copies of something, and later on down the road, it's going to, be worth a certain amount. Now, that could be true. If I had bought this book right here, New Mutants 98, if I'd bought that, and I did buy it, now this is not my original copy, but I had my original copy graded from the early 90s when I bought this particular book. Now, I don't think I bought more than one, or at least that I found, but, if I look back today, I'd have bought 100 copies of that at $1 a piece. That'd be $100. That was, good amount of money back then, but, excuse me. This book here, the 9.8, graded, can sell for hundreds. So, the shape this one is in is not really good. It's got some water damage. Well, water damage here. It needs to be pressed. Yeah, and there's another thing that is another topic in itself. Is great is taking books that have issues like that, like spine ticks, but maybe not the color breaks, or little dimples in it, wavy, cover or something like that. Send this off to be pressed. Now I suggest, unless you are, somebody's trained you, I wouldn't really do it on my own. And And so, yeah, this right here, if you see this book, this is a book you want to pick up, especially if it's, you know, if it's a price range that you can afford, you know, or if you're looking at, you know, for something in the future. Now, of course, this is the first appearance of Deadpool, and you know, with the Deadpool movie coming out, you know, this is jumping again. But you know, this is, you know, our third Deadpool movie, and so, you know, every time Deadpool's mentioned, these books just skyrocket. So they do pretty good. But going back, you know, to the 90s, not only did they sell out, they did a lot of specialty covers like this here, and you'll see a hologram right there. And so people say, "Oh, look at that! That's cool. That hologram. You know, that's gonna be worth some money one day because it got a hologram on it. So there's, you know, buy 100 copies." And you will find these all over the place. Storage units. People passed away or ain't paid for. You come in there, you find these, you know, these things. Now, these are still collectible. There are people that are, you know, that collect, you know, and the X-Men run or the X Factor run, or, you know, they collect specialty covers. So this book here, I would put about $5 on it at a show, and put it in my back issue box. Now, going back to, you know, say condition of a comic. So here we've got another example. It's Firestorm number 3, right? And so this is the first appearance of Killer Frost. It is what we call a minor key. There are minor keys and major keys, and this is what we call a minor key because it is her first appearance, but she's not a huge character. Whereas Firestorm is a huge character. But this isn't his first appearance or anything like that. This is her first appearance. Now, if you look, the book is in not great shape. There's a lot of issues with it. This cover's beat up pretty good. But what you will notice is there's a 12p for pence. So this would be a UK version. Now, how it got here to the States, who knows? But this book here, even though I had this book in a 9.8 myself, it's still, even then, I mean, the 9.8 it's a $90 or $100 book. At least last I looked. Now, you know, markets change all the time. You know, it's just like, you know, your stock market. You know, it's going to change. So you may buy books that you think are going to increase in value, and, you know, they're not, and they don't. All right. So this book, I would put in a dollar bin. And there are people that will buy this because they want a reader copy of it, which just means that, hey, you know, I got my encapsulator copy, but I want to read it, and, you know, so we just, listed as that, as a reader copy. All right, we have other things, what we call classic covers. You know, and it can, you know, cause a book to be worth, you know, quite a bit of money. So this particular one is Batman 251. It's a classic Joker cover, and what that means is just, you know, it's like music, you know, a period of time, something becomes a classic. So that's what this is. Of course, the Joker is part of this Rogues Gallery. Also, this cover, if I remember right, is done by Neil Adams. And Neil Adams is a big name. He has passed away. Last year. I don't think it was earlier this year. I believe it was last year. I've met him. You know, I have books that are graded and signed by him. But we'll talk about signatures too. But like particularly this book here. And because this is a Joker cover, classic Neil Adams Joker cover, the grade is not good on this book, as you can see here. You know, the spine is rolled. You can see how it's flattened itself out, and the staples are not, you know, over here. They should be, you know, like you would see on a regular book. A lot of issues with this book. But I will still send this book out for grading. And it will come back probably a 4.0, 5.0, something like that. And so, this week I just saw where this book is gone up quite a bit in value. And even at lower grades are doing well. But this book here will stay in my personal collection. Found it in the wild, and it was a good deal. And so this one will stay in my personal collection and graded. Now we talked about grade, like we were talking about grades. So, the low grade or a low grade is a 0.5. This is Avengers number 2. And, you say, wow, that don't look like, be the worst of the worst, in its condition. But if you look, it's going to tell you here in the corner, it's going to give you information about your book. It's going to say here, it's a Stan Lee story. It's a Jack Kirby art, Jack Kirby cover. Jack Kirby is made a major name, just like Stan Lee is in the comic industry. Of course, he passed years ago. It's the first appearance of Space Phantom, and it says the Hulk leaves the Avengers. So it's the significance of that is the first appearance, and the Hulk leaves them. But that's not what makes this the pop. This is Avengers number 2. I found this in a antique store. It's not Dillsboro, Franklin. Okay. Franklin, North Carolina. And when I saw this, I about fell over because chances of seeing Avengers 2 is almost next to none. Unless you're going on eBay or you're at a comic show or something like that. And this one I couldn't pass up. So it says, it's a 0.5. Avengers 1, I probably couldn't afford it coverless. That's how important that book is. And of course, the Avengers movies, the Marvel movies, decades, a decade now, or over a decade, film, and, all our characters are in here. But this is a 0.5 because it is missing a page. And when I say that, it tells you here that the centerfold is missing. So what that means is also it doesn't affect the story, which means if I went to read it, there's not a page missing that would make me wonder what's happening. All right, so this is this is a rarer book, and I did pay retail for this. And the reason I pay retail for this is because
you wanted it.
Well, it's not that I wanted it. It's because chances are I'm just not going to walk into a place and see this. Even at a show, even at a convention, these right here, I'm probably not just going to walk in and say, oh, you got Avenger 2. So, this is as close as probably ever come to Avengers 1. And the same thing with this particular book here is Batman 181, first appearance of Poison Ivy, and it gives you, the different, people up here who were the artist and the, artists for the cover. All right, so again, this is the same thing. Centerfold missing, affects story, incomplete. All right, so this was not. If this had the centerfold in it, this would probably run maybe a 4, 4.0, maybe a 4.5, something like that, which would make this book way more expensive than what I paid for it. And the reason I say what I paid for it is because at a 0.5, this particular book here was very, cost effective because of what it is. But it is the first appearance of Poison Ivy. And so just to find one alone is, a little difficult. So I'm not one who this is not an investment. It'll go up, sure, over the period of years, but it's not an investment. It is what we would call the same, as this. We call these major keys. Remember I mentioned a minor key, right? So say a major key here, right? As we, go in here, and well, one of the, let's see, one of both. So this here, Batman 203, Catwoman cover and appearance. This is a 3.5, and you'll see up here in the corner, it'll say cream to off-white pages or white to off-white pages. That's considered in the grade, and they put it up here to note it. So this is a CBCS. This one I sent off myself to have graded. It's come back at 3.5. This book is an investment book. I will not keep this book. Out of the lot of 5 that we sent, 3 of those 5 have sold. And
that one is currently listed,
and
correct?
this one is listed. This particular book here. So when we say this is Detective Comics 203, now remember, Batman is a detective. So you have Batman, you have Detective Comics. So this particular one, is a really desirable cover. And a very early appearance, not appearance, but Batman book. All right, so one of the other things, well, I'm going to show you this one too. This is another Batman book. It's Batman 49, a Joker cover and appearance, first appearance of Vicky Vale and the Mad Hatter. So this particular book I also sent off. It came back as a 3.0, and it's a gold age book. Remember I was talking about that. So it was a golden age. And this is the beginning of comics. Now, this is what I was going to talk about, not the detective, but this one is Batman 49. So, we also had Batman 46, 47, 48. And, what's really cool about this is that, if we go back, this, you've got 12 months in a year. So 4 years prior, Batman 1 was out. That was the first year, for that. So, this is only 4 years later. And, those, Batman 1 and such as that, were worth, this high grades or, out of almost everyone's reach unless they're a millionaire or something like that. But, so this is a classic, also Joker cover. Very desirable. Very hard to come by and very hard to find. So this one also, like for instance, is up for sale. Now, people also say, like with comics, what we call modern comics, you'll see where there are ratio variants. So we'll show you one here, but for instance, when we say ratio, that is, it can be a 1 in 5, a 1 in 10, 1 in 15, 1 in 25, 1 in 50, 1 in 100, 1 in 500. But what that means, 1 in, is that for every 5 copies that the comic store orders, or every 10 copies that the comic store orders, then the retailer will receive that comic, but with a different cover. Okay, so it's a 1 in 25 variant. It's a 1 in 10 variant. And people think, oh, it's a variant. Oh, you mean it's a special cover. Oh, it's worth money. No. Most of your variant covers are not going to be worth anything. They might come out of the gate, and people flip them on eBay and such like that to make a little bit of money. And sometimes if you get the right variant, you can make a lot of money. And if you get the right variant, you send off for grading, then that definitely that increases the value. If it comes back in 9.8, maybe even a 9.6, depending on what it is. But here we have Death of Wolverine, #1, and this is a CBCS. This was and it tells you up here again with like when this issue came out, 11/2014. But anyway, so this is a 1 in 25 variant. So it's a different cover. Came back in 9.6. And somebody might say, "Oh, that's a cool cover." Death of Wolverine was hot when it came out, but there was a lot of copies made. So that means if a lot of copies are made, even though it's a 1 in 25 variant, there are a lot of them out there. This particular book dropped drastically from the time I bought it into only probably 3 or 4 months later. So for me, if I say this is an investment piece, no. If I went back and looked now, all right, #1, because I thought it'd come back in 9.8, but it didn't. It came back in 9.6. So basically, this book, even though it's a 125 variant, now it's going to be case cost.
Now, years ago, didn't you spend quite a bit of time looking for variants on the days that they came out, if I'm remembering correctly?
Yeah, so like at Second Charles, I had a connection there. I knew
GameStop? Was it GameStop?
Nope.
One of them.
Second Charles, and I had a connection there, and so when they were ordering comics in the beginning, they don't anymore, and that connection has been gone for a long time. But I'd call up there and they'd say, "Oh yeah, what variants did you get in? This, this, and this. Oh, can you hold that for me? Sure." And then I go pick those up. So that's where that came from.
Okay. I just remembered you looking for variants.
And those are almost over. I picked up a variant from Augusta Book Exchange, which was Kid Venom 1, and that's not Kid Venom's first appearance, but it is his first solo, I think. But it's a 1 in 25 variant, so I paid $12 for that particular book. Some people may say, "Oh, that should have paid $12 for it." Well, I'm not going to find it anywhere else in Augusta, and so is that an investment book? I would say no. I would say that's a book that's going to be in my collection, and I may grade it. But a lot of people won't grade it because they say, "Oh, it's case cost. It's not worth it." But for me, it's a book that I wanted. I saw that was coming. Now that does not mean that book will not somewhere down the road spike. If he shows up in a movie, a cartoon, on the edge, Edge of Spider-Verse, or something or anything like that. But he's becoming a popular character. Whereas, what is Kid Venom? Well, Kid Venom has gotten a symbiote from Venom. Of course, that's no whole other story. Now, when you're talking about grading on your books, writing will kill the grade of a book. Well, it's autographed, and I watched it. I got a picture of it being autographed, yes, but for it to be encapsulated, it count as a grade, and not for the grade, not against the grade, and show that it is an authentic autograph. Then it has to be either authenticated itself through someone or a third party, or CBCS or CGC or whoever may have some of their people there, which they usually do at these shows, and they'll go with you and they'll witness, and you'll spend $5, $10, whatever, for them to witness that signature, and now there's a legitimate signature.
And then you hand it to them at that moment, and they go grade it, correct?
Right, they take it from you.
Yeah.
And then
Make sure it's the same one.
And then they're going to take it, and then they're going to take it with them back to Texas, because that's where CBCS is. We go back to Texas, and that's going to be graded and be sent back. It used to be down in Florida. So, if it has, writing on it, then that's going to affect the grade. And I do have books that are mine that I personally had signed, like from Cho or somebody like that. And some of those books have been graded, some of them are not. So this is Captain Marvel 2. This is a variant cover. This is not a ratio. Let's see, is that a ratio? That's a one. Yeah, it's a 1 in 20 variant. It has an Alpha Flight appearance in it. This came out 4, 2016. And you'll see here, there's a variant cover here, but you can see it has writing on it. Well, this is where the artist, and it'll say here that the cover is by Michael Cho, and it's signed by Michael Cho on 4/3/2016 at South Carolina Comic-Con. So I was going to tell you exactly outside the time it was done, the date, everything about it. And so that would be a legitimate autograph by Cho. And for instance, this particular book, I think I've got a couple by him. This particular book is up for sale when I go to shows or in the store.
And just to state, if that we typically do not keep the higher value comics on store premises, but if you want to call and set an appointment to show the higher value books, Sean will be happy to set an appointment with you and bring in what you're looking for.
Yeah, so this is Uncanny X-Men 266. It's the first appearance of Gambit. Excuse me. It is an 8.0. And I've got a personal copy. I have one loose copy. And then I have this graded copy. And I bought this copy myself. And I bought it as a investment piece. Because, there's going to be a new X-Men coming out. There's been talk for a long time, though, of Gambit movie. Who knows if that ever happens. But like, for instance, this book would be up for sale. And then I have one in my private, my personal collection. And again, you say, whoa, this is an 8.0. It was $150. Well, if it's a 9.8, this is a very expensive book. And, what we'll see in markets is that, we see a market shift. This book gets hot, real hot for some reason, whatever that might be. And then, we go up here and we've got, and I'm just throwing it out there. Let's just say this book at a 9.8 was $1,400. At 8.0, that's don't seem too high, much off of that, but, that affects the grade a whole lot in the price. But that does not mean that you don't get a lower grade, have it graded, and that book, does have potential value. I'd say Gambit's one of my favorite characters, so, if I come across a 9.8, I'd probably sell my other and, have it graded, or, I would just, pay the retail price myself. Another thing is, I hear somebody comes in and they'll say, oh, I got a comic book certified because I sent it off to be graded. No, that is not correct. Your book is, when I say certified, you don't certify that it's, an original Batman book. Some of these books, they have, are coming out weekly with, different print, another print. And, there's first, second, third printings, things like that. Or it's just a total, just a modern book. You buy it at the comic book store for $3. That book's not worth, going to be worth really anything, I don't believe, down the road. But you can get a lower grade and, still be, have some value to it. Now, I'm going to give you, and I'll mention it again later, but there are two shows that would be good, to watch to gather information. And one is Comic Tom 101, and I watch on YouTube, and I watch him, quite a bit. They are on the market once, they do more than one show a week, but they do the top 10, and they're pretty on on point with all this stuff. And then another one out there, Legion of Comics. It's from a guy here in Augusta who has a podcast, and he's got really good information that comes on his. All right, so we can't have comic books. There are comic books out there that deal with rock stars and NASCAR drivers and baseball, football, all kinds of different things. But some, depending on who the artist is, and these are these came back out in the 90s, and these are low print runs on that. Because there's not a lot of them out there. So Prince, for instance, this was not really recognized. There was worth a little bit of money, but not a whole lot until his death. Now, when that happened, this book went up, and it still has stayed. At least last time I looked, a little bit up there. So you'll see that. Just because this is Prince. If you found one that it could be Rolling Stones, but it might not be just a popular piece, and so it's not worth anything. Now, I always say, what is worth? Worth is what you're willing to pay. Worth is what it means to you. And buy what you, I would say before you invest, buy what you like. Buy, what you want to collect. And if it goes up, it goes up. But don't go out there and watch, like I said, watch Comic Tom 101 and watch where the market's going, and so that you're not overpaying. And don't buy your books necessarily when news hits the market, because those books are going to skyrocket. And later, after it's all over, they'll go back down. You'll get them, for free, not for free, but at a lower cost later. All right. So, what is the significance of this book? Batman Adventures, animated. Is that animated? Yeah. Batman Adventures 12 is the first appearance of Harley Quinn. So if you watch Batman movies or Suicide Squad, then you've seen Harley Quinn. She's one of the 1-2 main characters in the movie. So this is a modern book, but this character has had a lot of popularity with Batman and comic book collectors and the character itself. So this book here, I'll send this book out for grading, and when it comes back, then I'll keep it for my personal collection. It is investment. I did not pay a lot for this book. I will say that. But after it's graded, it's got some value now, definitely. I can grade it, and it's going to have more value. It's probably going to come back at like an 8.0, like you saw the Gambit, something like that. But you don't see a whole. Well, I don't. I see them at shows and stuff, but I kind of wait sometimes, and I was able to come across it in another way. Now we talked about writing on a book. So you'll see here, this is a Doctor Strange 1. This book is nothing more than $1 or $2, something like that. I'll take that back. It might be a few dollars. I think there was something significant. It's a minor key, but you'll see it's been signed. So that signature right there kills the value of that book, lowers that grade. So it's not a book I would send off to maybe grade or certify that signature or anything like that. If it was Stan Lee, it'd be a whole different story. All right, so we talked about ratio variance. We also have a ratio variant, what is called 1 per store. So every comic book store that orders the book gets a complimentary copy. This is just a particular one. It's a 1 per store variant. This book is not a valuable book, for instance. It's also, when you see a white cover like this, it's what we call a sketch cover. Just like, you would sketch in a sketchbook. These are called sketch covers, and you see them like this. Now, again, when this book came, this is Dune 1, off the movie, off the book Dune. When this came out, it may have been, above whatever, cover price, is on the book. And you can see here, when this book was bought, it was bought for $10 at a one per store. So let's say, I don't remember how many now or how many have come and gone, excuse me, but let's say there's 3,400 comic book shops and stores in the United States. If there's 3,400, that's 3,400 copies. And, it's a one per store. So that means, there are not tons of these out there, but, it's just not, typically a real valuable book. Could it be one day? Probably not. One of the things that you look at are characters that are on covers. This is Kang. So the last, trying to remember which Marvel movie it was, where just not too long ago Kang was introduced in the MCU. But this is a cover. I got another one right here somewhere. With him on the cover. Now, his first appearance, went up, value, this kind of thing, got hot. So did these, but they're not extremely, up there or anything like that. But because these are early cover appearances with the Avengers, this one got trending. Trending is what we mean, like, when it gets hot, just like a trend. And then you have, for instance, this is Batman: The Killing Joke. This is a very, very popular Batman storyline. Came out in the 90s, if I remember right. I think it was late 80s. But this book has had many different printings. And, of course, you can look on the inside of the book, you can see what the printings are, things like that. But, for instance, this right here, just a Killing Joke, that changes up. What printing is it? We can take it out. And let's see, it will tell me. All right, so this is late 80s, 1988. This is the 6th printing. Right, so this book here would not, and the 6th printing, can mean, means that, with this 6th printing, there's going to be less copies of this book than the first book. That may be true in some cases. With some books, it may not. But especially, when there's, this a different, well, it looks like the same as number 1. Yeah, but this is different right here. The color is different. People will there's some people who collect all 6 because they'll collect every edition. Just the same way somebody might, say, a Kiss album, Kiss Alive 1 or Kiss Alive, they're going to get the record, the 8-track, the cassette, the CD, the digital, so they're going to get, everything. And some collectors have that too. They do this. I would definitely say if you are interested in storylines and things like that, then get a copy and read it, for the fun. This month a new comic has come out this month, and it's Avengers versus Aliens. So the Aliens movie, and Marvel owns Aliens. And so they're taking the Avengers and crossing over to Aliens. And, you can take a storyline like that and, there's books, and these are not, investment books. These are books to read for the entertainment value. To me, that's a great crossover. You see something like that. That'd be amazing if that was actually a movie. But, we get into it and we see, you go back and, you've had, in the 90s, you had Batman versus Predator. And, now you have, you had Predator versus Alien. And then now you have this. So, read your books for entertainment because there are some good storylines out there. There are controversial storylines. So here's Walt Disney's Uncle Remus and his Tales of Brer Rabbit. Now, this particular Disney book, just because a book is Walt Disney does not mean it's worth a whole lot of money. But what you want to do, because even as long as I've been collecting and been a vendor at shows and different things like that, I cannot, unless I know that's the first appearance of Baby Huey. Unless I know it from Hanna-Barbera. Unless I know that is the first appearance. I may see him on the cover, but he's on all the covers. He's on all kind of different covers. I wouldn't know. So I always say, research that book. I don't care. Research it if you don't know. But this is a controversial book subject. Disney just got rid of the was it a water slide? What was it?
The water ride.
Yeah, the water ride. So that this book is a key, and you got to look and love the history of our books. They go through political times, and everything is reflected in these books. This particular book will go for grading, and when it comes back, it will go up for sale. It's not really one I have an interest in keeping in a private collection.
And would you expect that to come back graded at a 0.5?
No, this will probably come back probably 2.5 to a 3.0.
So it's not missing any pages or the centerfold or anything?
No.
Okay.
And it doesn't, and they don't necessarily have centerfolds either. Golden Age. All right, so here we go. Sensation Comics. Now, yeah, they did become Wonder Woman comics, or Wonder Woman in the comics. But this is a very early example. This one has a lot of issues. It's got writing up here. It's got all kind of stuff. And, believe it or not, I'll show you this one too. This was the 58, this is number 71. You can see a lot of damage. Covers, not what just, it was barely hanging on, things like that. This book, I will, even though it is what it is, and it's cool, you don't see a lot of them, it's cool, but this one I would not send in because by the time it's all said and done, it's not going to change much. It's going to be a low grade. And this book is not one, even though it is what it is, that's, really expensive at this grade. So, so these two, would not go for grading. Maybe this one, I'm not sure if I want to send it or not. Now here we're gonna have a Batman book. This is Batman 79. It's a 10-cent book. It's a Gold Age book. And this is another that will go up for grading. Now, as I showed you with the other ones, this came from the same collection I got that one from. This one will not be as valuable, but a couple of these down here, what I sold one at our last show for $1,000. Sold another one not too long before that for another $1,000. So, they're definitely worth, taking a look at. There's a Batman. It's a Golden Age. This is GI Combat. Your war books. A lot of your war books and horror type books aren't really have a whole lot of value to them. A lot of collectability though. don't think sell for much. But what's the significance of this one? This is GI Combat October, and if I remember right, I'd have to open up and look at it, but it's a very early issue. I know it's a key. Let me look at it, because it could be, is it GI Combat 1? Is that what this is? All right, so this one, too. Yeah, GI Combat 1. So this book will go for grading. Whether I keep it in my private collection or not, that'll be debated at the time when this comes back.
Is that the same thing as G.I. Joe?
No,
Okay.
G.I. Joe is totally different than G.I. Combat. G.I. Joe was the figure. G.I. Combat is a particular character that are there. And Shazam, or the Marvel family. You know, we have these guys here too. This is a Gold Age book. But this one won't go for grading because it's just typically not a really valuable book to begin with. Other things you're going to look at, you're going to see Archie, like here. Now your Archie books, those from that publisher, those aren't necessarily they're worth a whole lot. These particular ones that I have are because they are very early Archie issues, and they're in pretty decent shape. So this particular one was Archie's joke book. But what you also want to do, even though you might come across like some Archie books and stuff like that from the 60s, 70s, 80s, and even 90s, always check to see if there's a first appearance in there. If there's a first appearance in there, then you might have caught on to something. I particularly am looking for the first appearance of Sabrina the Teenage Witch. And when I put my hands on it, when I find it, it ain't gonna be cheap at all. And that's just one of those particular books. I really like her character. So, and it's not necessarily a really old book. So you want to look at that stuff. You got to look at what's like on, look at the covers. There's what's called, just talk about Archie real quick first. So you may see Veronica, Betty, on the cover, and maybe they're at the beach and they're bikinis and things like this. There are collectors that particularly look for those particular ones. So you may have one of those risque covers, and that's something to look at, or maybe even to grab what we call speculation, what we call spec. So you may maybe find a minor key or something like that, or a first appearance, and pick it up. And it may be something you can put back, and it may go value later, may not. But that's a possibility. When we're talking about those covers, one thing you want to remember is that there's what's called bondage covers. And it's just exactly what it says. Now that doesn't necessarily mean, is it somebody over here, tied up and handcuffed, and the mistress or dominatrix or the dom or whoever. It's not what we're necessarily talking about. A lot of these, for instance, you'll see, and I've got one. I just didn't bring it in here with me. But Wonder Woman is one of those, and you'll see that. So where like there's one about her going to the Isle. It'd be kind of similar like going to the island of Lilliput, where they tie her down, but yet she's in a bikini or something, whatever it might be. So if you go to a show, you'll see where they will note that, hey, this is a bondage cover, and so there are collectors for that. Let's see. There was another cover I was going to cover. I wanted to talk about now. I don't remember what it was, but so early Archie. That's really what you want to look for. And it's hard to find Archie in books in really good shape. And I would say, even though this it's got some issues like some pieces of covers missing, things like that. These were read. The kids got them, and teenagers got a hold of them, and things like this. And so you don't necessarily find them in great shape. And I'll show you this one real quick. This is another one. This is Betty Veronica. Some of their early issues can be quite expensive. Here we have one called Weird Fantastic Stories of the Unknown. And it shows, it's called Blue Bolt. And this particular...
Are we still in Golden Age, or
We're all over the place.
Okay.
So this book here is a Gold Age book, but what we're looking at, we see the space theme. This was during, at the time when we started seeing the World's Fair, the space, not the space race, but
Space Needle in Seattle.
No, back,
Apollo.
Well, you're talking the 40s, the 50s.
Okay.
Atomic. I'll say atomic age. Everybody's wondering what's going out there in outer space. But one of the things a character particularly to look for is Doctor Strange.
So that's like the time frame of My Favorite Martian, or something that someone would be familiar with.
Yeah.
Okay.
Something like that.
Perfect.
Now here's an action comic, Superman 136. And this is Gold Age. This is early Superman. Somebody might say, "Whoa, there's that's a bikini cover." So that made that book worth money. No, this book, is not necessarily worth a whole lot. And there's a lot. You've got, again, you got writing up here, you got a lot of spine damage. And just because it has, that kind of cover, does not necessarily mean that it's worth money. Now, somebody will look at this and go, Bob Hope? Yeah. So Bob Hope, or celebrities. I showed you, the one with the Prince cover. That one. And, we talked about, how those can have value. Now, here's Bob Hope. And if I were to look at this, when I first looked at it, I had never really experienced with Bob Hope comic books or anything like that. Well, with him, so my first thought when I saw it was, it's probably doesn't have a lot of value. Until I did some research on it, and when I looked it up, this book is quite valuable. Way more valuable than I thought. This book here will go for grading, and will go up for sale. Will not stay in my personal collection.
And what do you expect that to come back as?
Maybe a 5 or 6.
Okay. Now, are lower grades more acceptable in the older books than in the more modern books?
Yes.
Okay.
Because a modern book, like that one there that I showed earlier, okay, so the alpha appearance in here, it's because if this one came, you get a 9.8, I'll show you in a minute, in that particular book, then it may, let's say it's $100, but with these little spine ticks making it a 96, 94, 92. This book is at best cost to have it
Great.
graded. That's it. $50, $40. I look, some today. I mean, they were lower than that at a store. They were graded. They were lower. We're doing 30, 40. So, they, how many of these were printed? Probably not a lot, because that ain't for really, targeting children and things. People
And
like
people
that.
actually read the old books more than collected them, correct?
Correct.
So the old books, because they were read and handled and opened and whatever, they're going to have more spine ticks or color breaks or folded pages in general, correct?
Yeah.
Because people weren't really collecting them at that point. They
Now,
were using them as actual books.
You also got to think like that. We were in Raleigh, North Carolina, a hockey camp. Went up there, and I went to a store, and these books weren't graded, but I mean, they're early, Gold Age, Silver Age books, and like the first appearance of Legion of Superheroes was there. Some others. These books, I asked the man, are you going to send these out to grade? And he's like, well, no, because I really want to get them sold and everything. I'm like, I'm looking at it going, the cost increase that you would have here, because these books were no lower than a 9.6 and worth thousands, but he didn't want to send them for grading. But he still got thousands. But what I'm saying is that if that book I was looking at was, a torn up 1.0, it would be fine. I mean, that's fine. What I'm saying is there were people, yes. That's why I like the, just like these guys. There's defects with these. That's why this is 0.5. And I don't care, because, this is something, this is a character I like, character I wanted, and I wanted the first appearance, and, even at a 0.5, there was missing that page, but the whole book was great.
So you've talked about gold, silver, bronze, copper. Can you give us roughly time frames of each generation of comic books, if I'm using that terminology correct?
I'll look it up.
Okay.
I can look it up.
Not off the top of your head, huh?
But just a few more. I'll show you these and why they're important. So here, this is a modern book. It's an Iron Man, Invincible Iron Man, 7. So this is the first appearance of Riri Williams, who has become and taken the place of Iron Man. Okay, because Iron Man died in Avengers Endgame. So there is no more, Tony Stark in that particular universe. Maybe in the multiverse, but not in that verse. But anyway, so I bought this off the rack myself. I was hoping to get a 9.8, got a 9.6. But even then, being her first appearance, makes that book a little value to it. This is also the Women of Power variant. So during that month, they did a lot of different covers for the different books. With that logo, more kind of a feminist thing there going on, but it's a variant cover, so it's different, but it's not a ratio cover. What do you mean?
What do you mean?
Well, there's cover, you may have cover A, cover B, cover C, and cover D. And they all may be the same
Number of
copies, or there may not. And this is one of those. This is not a ratio variant, anything like that. And that's these are from my personal collection. Then you'll see Spider-Ham. This is a 9.8. This first appearance of, well, not first appearance. This is him in his first solo book. Spider-Ham is, part of that Spider-Verse series, and so this is one that I look out for. Another modern book. But why this particular book? It's Batman 23. Now, the one thing we've got to talk about is that Marvel, DC, and other companies, they restart their numbering system. So, this is not a book that is Batman 23 from the Gold Age. So, this is Batgirl. What makes this particular book different than the others is the artist, Joshua Middleton. This is a variant cover, but not a ratio variant cover. So it's not a 1 in 5, 1 in 10, 1 in 25, 1 in 50, nothing like that. What makes this book desirable is the artist and his artwork on the cover of this book. I bought 3 of these, had them graded. This one is in my personal collection, and it's a beautiful cover. The artwork's great. Now, a lot of Middleton's work goes up. Some does, and others, they're great covers, just like that, but they don't. And it's kind of a hit or miss. But I may see particular artists like him and go, oh, that's cool. But they're just a cover. They're not a ratio variant or anything like that to just even start with. But even then, I'd be wary. But we got to watch for, for that artist. There's one particular, cover that pops more. Maybe that's the best he's ever done. That could lead to that. All right, so this is Justice League number 9. Justice League number 9 is what they're going to call a classic cover. It's a 5.0. This is part of my personal collection. This is the origin of the Justice League. And we're familiar with Superman and Batman and the Justice League. It's very early Justice League. So it's the origin of them. So that makes that particular book probably one of the most proud ones I have. It's Amazing Spider-Man 3. I'll never own an Amazing Spider-Man 1, I'm pretty sure. I'll be lucky if I ever get to own a Spider-Man 2. But I do own a Spider-Man 3. Spider-Man not only being 3, it's the first appearance of Dr. Ock, or Dr. Octopus. This book does have amateur restoration. Small amount of color touch on cover. Cover reinforced with glue. One tiny piece of tape on cover. So how do I own a Amazing Spider-Man 3? Well, that's the reason right there. So if you have restoration, in most cases, it is going to affect a book very, very greatly. And so if this, and they do, when these are graded, they do look for restoration, because sometimes that does happen. And even like just taping the spine is considered that. So, how can I afford this book? Because it's restored. But does not mean it doesn't have value. This is Spider-Man 3. And those don't come around, beating around the corner very often. So even though, and you'll see, my books have defects, but the covers look great. And that's fine with me. I have no problem with that. And a lot of collectors, they don't have a problem with it either. Others, they wouldn't touch it. Fantastic Four. Now this is a 9.0. Why would I want a 9.0 in this? Well, It's the first appearance of Marvel Zombies. And I love Walking Dead and anything to do with zombies. So, and Marvel has, Marvel Zombies has been animated, so we can see it on Disney. This is a variant. It's a Greg Land variant, and it is signed. I had him sign it at a convention. And so this is because it's from my personal, it's my personal collection. This one wouldn't go up for a sale. This thing would be like case cost, because of the grade. But yeah, it's witnessed on 3/25/2018. So that's where that comes from. Action Comics 1, the first appearance of Superman. Well, if we actually had that, we wouldn't be talking now.
We'd be retired.
On a small island too. But anyway, this is Action Comics 1. And it's graded at a 9.0. But why do you have an Action Comics 1 and you're not somewhere else? But look at the back of this. You'll see camping and that kind of thing there. It says powwow, boys and girls, what a sleeping bag. What a sleeping bag, the Superman sleeping bag. This book is the first reprint in comic form of Action Comics 1. So it tells you here, reprint of, for Superman. Cat's going crazy. And so I came across 3 of these. I graded 3. I kept the highest grade for myself, for my personal collection. This is what Action Comics 1 looks like. And that's maybe I guess they can debate it, but maybe. But I don't say 1976.
Okay. So it's still 47 years old.
And people may argue about different characters and stuff, but in my opinion, Superman was the start of it. And they'll argue. Other characters were too. Before him. A couple more, and then we'll get out of that. Fantastic Four. This book was really hot at one point. Have the first appearance of Inhumans, and when the Inhumans movie came out, this thing was going for quite a bit of money. The movie was a flop, and what happened when it became a flop? This went down. People lost a lot of money on that hype. I bought it afterward because I just wanted. I love the cover. It's a great cover. It's just what I wanted. So I bought this for myself at retail. So no, it's not an investment piece. Eternals 1 at 8.5. I bought this at retail. I wanted it, because I like the group, the cover too, the heroes and everything. First appearance and origin of the Eternals. This book is, not worth really a whole lot of money, but it was, it's just something I really liked. And I'm going to save the best one for last, but this is the early Hulk. What they call a classic cover. Kazar appearance. And, it's really, really not, it's bad shape, but I just love old comic books. Okay, so we talk about signatures and things like that. So this is X-Men 61, the second appearance of Sauron. Neil Adams and Tom Palmer art, Neil Adams cover, Roy Thomas story. But there's something particular about this particular X-Men book. We have 3 signatures on this book. Neil Adams is 1. Roy Thomas is the 2nd. Stan Lee is the 3rd.
Well, he didn't sign much, did he?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, he did. Okay.
So not only has Stan Lee signed this book, but we have 2 others who've signed this book too. Been witness verified. So this is quite an expensive book. It's probably not the most valuable one I own, but it's on up there. And you have these 3. So Stan Lee has passed. Neil Adams passed last year. Roy Thomas is he's still here with us. Matter of fact, he only lives about an hour and 15 minutes of the road in Columbia, South Carolina from us. I see him not often, but I do see him when I go up there. Especially sometimes the shows and stuff. He's a good guy, and he's one of the legends. He is like Stan Lee. I mean, he is the legend. He started. He's the reason some of this stuff is where this stuff is. Where it's at today. Yeah. So I'm gonna wrap it up, and yeah, if you enjoyed this and you got you've got some information from it, give some feedback, and we can do other shows related to this, toys or any kind of thing, if you have an interest.
So guys, thanks so much for joining us in our living room tonight. And as part of the Meemaw family, thank you for everything and being a part of our community. We certainly do appreciate everyone and hope you learned some things from these educational videos. We are going to be doing some more. And if you would like to set an appointment to view any of the comics that Sean does have up for sale, certainly just send us a message, give us a call, whatever you need to do, and we'll be happy to do that for you. We do have comics in store as well, but like I said, the more collectible and the more crazy cat and the more high value comics, we don't just leave in the store. Those are under lock and key. So certainly appreciate you all joining us tonight, and let us know if you have any questions. We appreciate you guys. Thanks for joining me tonight.
Read that one. Yeah.